Wait, we get to make the laws? What is this magic? So, let's talk about something called direct democracy. I know, it sounds like a very serious term you'd hear from a guy in a tweed jacket with elbow patches, but stick with me. All it really means is that instead of electing people to make laws for you, you get to vote on the laws yourself. Every single one. Imagine that. It's like being at a restaurant where, instead of a chef deciding the menu, every single customer gets to vote on whether salt is a good idea. Yes, every time. It's a beautifully simple and potentially chaotic idea. The core concept is giving power directly to the people. You, me, that guy down the street who insists on mowing his lawn at 7 a.m. on a Sunday. We all get a say. Instead of just picking a person every few years and hoping they do what we want, we would be in the driver's seat for every major decision. This isn't a new idea, by the way. Ancient Athens did a version of this, though it's worth noting their idea of everyone was a bit selective. Still, the principle remains. The people rule, directly. No middlemen, no representatives, just pure, unfiltered public opinion. So how would this even work in our modern world? Picture this, a new law is proposed. Let's say it's about whether all squirrels should be legally required to wear tiny, adorable hats. Instead of a bunch of politicians in a fancy building debating it, you get a notification on your phone. New bill squirrel hat mandate, tap to vote. You'd read a simple summary, hopefully one that isn't 1,200 pages long, and then you'd tap yes or no. Your vote gets counted along with millions of others, and boom, the next day, squirrels are either fashion forward or they're not. This would apply to everything. Not just the silly stuff, but the big, important decisions too. Should we raise taxes to build new hospitals? You vote. Should we change the rules for how schools are funded? You vote. Should we declare pineapple on pizza a national culinary treasure or a crime against humanity? Yes, even for that you vote. It would be a constant stream of decisions, turning your smartphone into a tiny, powerful voting booth that you carry around in your pocket. Every citizen becomes a lawmaker every day. It's democracy on steroids. Now, on the surface, this sounds amazing, right? It's the ultimate form of people power. One huge benefit is that governments would have to be incredibly responsive. They couldn't ignore public opinion because public opinion would be the law. If 70% of people want better public transport, they can just vote for it. There's no more sending angry emails to a representative who sends back a form letter saying, "Thank you for your valuable input." Your input would be the whole game. It creates a system where the government is a direct reflection of the people's will. Another good thing is engagement. People might actually start paying attention to what's going on. If you know your vote directly decides whether a new park gets built in your neighborhood, you're probably going to read up on it. It could make everyone more informed and more involved in their communities. It's like when you're in a group project and you know one person is going to do all the work, you might just sit back. But if everyone has to contribute equally or the whole thing fails, suddenly everyone becomes an expert on the history of the Roman Empire. Or, tax policy. But, and this is a big but, there are some massive problems. First, the sheer exhaustion. Imagine having to vote on hundreds of laws every single week. Bill 407, Amendments to the Agricultural Water Drainage Act. Do you know anything about that? Do you want to? Most people have jobs, families, and a desperate need to find out what happens next on that reality show they're hooked on. Forcing everyone to become an expert on every topic is just not realistic. People would get voter fatigue and just start ignoring the notifications, or worse, just randomly tapping yes or no without reading. And that leads to another terrifying problem. What if the majority makes a terrible decision? A well-funded, slick campaign could convince millions of people to vote for something truly awful. Imagine a catchy ad with a popular celebrity telling you to vote yes on the free ice cream for everyone act, but the fine print reveals it will be paid for by shutting down all the hospitals. People make emotional, short-sighted decisions all the time. That's why you don't let a toddler be in charge of the weekly grocery shopping. You'd end up with a cart full of nothing but cookies and a single lonely onion. So, what do most of us have now? It's called representative democracy, and honestly, it's the system direct democracy fans love to hate. Instead of voting on every law, we vote for people, representatives, senators, presidents, you name it, to go and make those decisions for us. It's basically like hiring someone to do the boring, complicated work of running a country. We are the boss, and they are the employees we hired to read those 2,000-page reports and argue about zoning regulations. We check in on their performance every few years and decide whether to renew their contract or, fire them. The main difference here is delegation. In a direct democracy, you're the chef, the waiter, and the dishwasher. In a representative democracy, you're the restaurant owner who hires a staff to handle all of that. You still set the general direction, like, I want this to be a place that serves good food and doesn't get shut down by the health inspector, but you trust the professionals you hired to handle the day-to-day details. You don't personally have to decide the exact ratio of flour to water in the bread dough. You just get to complain if the bread tastes bad. This system has its advantages. For one, these representatives are supposed to be full-time experts, or at least, they're supposed to have a staff of experts. Their entire job is to understand the issues, debate the options, and find compromises. They can dedicate the time and resources that a regular person simply doesn't have. They can hold hearings, call witnesses, and do deep dives into complex subjects like international trade agreements or the federal budget. This specialization is meant to lead to more thoughtful, well-researched laws than a quick public vote might produce. Of course, the downside is obvious to anyone who has ever watched the news. These representatives might stop listening to us the moment they get elected. They can be influenced by lobbyists, big corporations, or their own political ambitions. We might vote for someone who promised to protect the environment only to watch them vote in favor of a new oil pipeline because a donor asked them to. We give them our power, and sometimes they use it in ways we absolutely hate. It can feel like you're not being heard at all, which is exactly why the idea of taking the power back is so appealing. More power or more problems? When you put these two systems side by side, you see a fundamental trade-off. Direct democracy offers perfect representation, but risks being chaotic, slow, and driven by uninformed emotional whims. It's the promise of ultimate power for the people, but it comes with the responsibility of doing all the homework, forever. It treats every citizen like a qualified politician, which is a lovely thought but honestly might be a bit optimistic. Not everyone wants to spend their evenings reading policy briefs, and honestly, not everyone should. Some people have terrible ideas, I have terrible ideas, you probably do too. Representative democracy, on the other hand, is more practical and stable. It creates a buffer of professional lawmakers who can, in theory, make more informed decisions. But this comes at the cost of feeling disconnected and powerless. We trust others to act in our best interest, and we have to live with the consequences when they don't. It's efficient, but it can easily lead to a government that feels completely out of touch with the people it's supposed to serve. It's the difference between cooking your own dinner and ordering takeout. One gives you total control, the other is easier, but you might get the wrong order. Some places have tried to find a middle ground. Switzerland, for example, uses a hybrid system. They have representatives, but citizens can call for a national vote on any law if they gather enough signatures. This acts as a kind of emergency brake. If the politicians do something the people really hate, the people can step in and overrule them. It's like having a representative system but keeping the final say in your back pocket. It's an interesting compromise, a trust but verify approach to government that gives people power without overwhelming them. So which is better? A system where everyone has a direct voice with all the messiness that entails, or a system where we trust a few to speak for the many, with all the risks of betrayal that involves? There's no easy answer. Do we want the power to make our own mistakes, or do we want the convenience of paying someone else to make them for us? It's a question about what we want democracy to be, a perfectly responsive but potentially unstable reflection of ourselves, or a more stable but imperfect and often frustrating delegation of our power. I don't know the answer, but it's probably something we should all vote on.